Hooters, the nightmare of every overbearing father who pushed his daughter to get a summer job and forgot to be specific.
Why do I like Hooters? Well, I will give you two reasons: the boobs and the hot wings.
Hooters is shutting down. Yes, the restaurant chain famous for its wings, beer, and a business model that seems like it was invented by a frat guy with a minor in marketing and a major in wet t-shirt contest for charity, is filing for bankruptcy and closing locations worldwide. But while this might seem like just another struggling chain restaurant fading into obscurity, the fall of Hooters is actually a much bigger story. Because Hooters wasn't just a restaurant, it was an institution. It spent decades cementing itself into American culture, sponsoring professional sports, partnering with legendary athletes, and keeping America's chicken wing to cleavage ratio at an all-time high. And now? Now we're just letting it die? Where is FEMA when you really need them? Yet, despite that deep cultural footprint, Hooters has failed to survive in 2025. And the reasons why tell us a lot about how American business, sports culture, and even casual dining have changed. So, let's explore how Hooters rose to prominence, why it mattered, and what ultimately led to its downfall. To understand how we got here, we need to go back to the beginning. To six Florida men with a business plan so dumb, it was destined to work. Hooters was founded on April 1st, 1983, which is funny, because when the wives in the neighborhood first heard the business model, they said, "You're joking, wait, are you serious?" And thus began the greatest marital trust exercise of all time. The original location was opened in Clearwater, Florida, launched by six businessmen who called themselves the Hooters Six. Ken Wimmer and Lynn L.D. Stewart, two painting contractors, Dennis Johnson, a brick mason, Ed Dorsett, a real estate executive, Billy Ranieri, a retired service station owner, and Gil D.G. Antonio, a liquor salesman who, judging by that name, left the family waste management business so suddenly, it's like someone found out he was skimming off the top, and I probably shouldn't be talking about it. As it turns out, they intentionally picked April 1st as the opening date because even they thought the business was a joke. Rumor has it, when asked about the date, Stewart admitted, "I had every intention of being broke in 6 months." And yet somehow this joke survived longer than Borders' books. Because as we all know, Americans are much more interested in racks than shelves. The founders had no clue how to run a restaurant. Again, that wasn't really covered in Intro to Logistics of Bikini Car Washes. The Hooters Six were just friends who wanted a place to eat wings and drink beer while paying to hang around attractive and, frankly, busty waitresses. And in building that dream, they made some of the most absurd business choices imaginable. The name Hooters itself is a double entendre, referring to both the owl in its logo and serving as slang for two-point jumpers. Sweater stretchers? Boobs. Hooters' entire business model revolved around the female servers known as Hooters girls. They weren't asked to do tableside salads or flambe a creme brulee, or really any discernible waitressing skill. Why don't you watch this early Hooters ad and then just try to tell me why Hooters girls became the most recognizable service industry professionals in America.
If you like what you see here on the outside, you're gonna love what you'll see on the inside. The recipe for Hooters chicken wings is so secret, even our cooks aren't allowed to know it. Do you know why our beer is so cold here at Hooters? Because we keep it in the refrigerator. Hey kids, you want to do your dad a really big favor? Tell your mom you want to go to Hooters.
With strict appearance standards and enforced grooming policies, being a Hooters girl demanded a lot. But don't worry, ladies, there's a guide for that. The official Hooters Girl Handbook. Some call it the Bible of mental health crises, or a therapist's favorite book. But the truth is, it's all that and more. The Hooters Girl Handbook dictated everything from nail polish color to the exact amount of makeup required for a shift. And it all begins with the iconic outfit. That white t-shirt. The V-neck so low it starts at the cleavage. Those orange booty shorts. So high they end at regret. Where was I? Oh, right. The clothes were just part of the Hooters look. Employees weren't just expected to wear the uniform, they were expected to fit it. That meant strict weight standards with the risk of probation for failing to maintain Hooters girl fitness expectations. And if that wasn't enough, dress code violations like not wearing makeup or having the wrong hair color could get you suspended if not fired. But more on that in just a second. Just when it seemed like Hooters had pushed its dress code as far as it could go, they somehow found room to cut more fabric. In 2021, a viral controversy erupted when a Hooters attempted to introduce even smaller thong-style shorts for its servers, sparking employee backlash and forcing the company to reverse the policy. And if all of this, an industry requiring women to smile while being underpaid, objectified, and yelled at by guys named Harvey sounds familiar, well, it shouldn't surprise you to learn that Hooters and Hollywood dip into the same talent pool, almost like a promotional stepping stone.
Did you ever think that you would be here? I know you used to be a Hooters waitress, which I can see.
I did.
Why?
Yes, you can see.
I would be proud of that. I'd be like, I had the body, people.
Well, I was like 18, so everybody has the body at 18.
Very true.
But no, it was a great job out of high school, and I was a hostess at first, and then I waited tables for a while, and they were great. It was a great way to earn money for a car.
So when you were that Hooters waitress, did you ever think you would wind up at the Golden Globes red carpet and pretty much being nominated for every award there is?
No, I never did.
Amy Adams, Nye Rivera, Lee Allen Baker. Turns out, if you want to make it in Hollywood, you need experience pretending to be interested in old men who just want to talk about themselves. Hooters was basically an unpaid internship. As if the business model wasn't ridiculous enough, Hooters also ran into legal trouble because, shockingly, a restaurant built on judging waitresses by their cup size and ability to flirt with drunk patrons had some HR issues. The most predictable, multiple sexual harassment lawsuits with former employees alleging a toxic work environment. In 1993, several Hooters staff sued the chain, claiming that the restaurant created an environment that allowed customers to make sexual comments and advances towards waitresses. Next, in 2000, a federal jury ordered Hooters to pay $275,000 to a former waitress, Sarah Steinhoff, who alleged unwanted sexual advances and demeaning behavior from managers while working at a Kentucky location between 1996 and 1997. And in 2017, former waitress Jade Velez filed a lawsuit alleging she was a victim of workplace sexual assault by a kitchen employee, naming the employee, the three managers, and Hooters of America LLC all as defendants. However, the most notorious lawsuit came in 1997, when a group of men led by wannabe waiter Savingo Latuga sued Hooters for gender discrimination after being denied server positions. And to that I say, slay kings. Hooters settled the case for $3.75 million, but was able to keep its hiring practices in place by rebranding the roles as entertainers instead of servers. Again, ladies, take that job at Chipotle, but entertainers would look much better than cashier on LinkedIn. As part of this settlement, Hooters did agree to create more non-servers positions for men. And in a true act of equality, they made sure those men got the full Hooters experience, whether they wanted it or not. In 2016, two male employees, Scott Peterson and Paul P.J. Cagnina, sued Hooters, alleging repeated sexual harassment by their male supervisors in Los Angeles and Orange County. So, based on everything you already know about these owners, their values, their culture, their deeply inspiring moral compass, is anyone shocked that sexism wasn't their only ism? In Greensboro, North Carolina, 43 employees, many of whom were black or had darker skin tones, were laid off due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Upon rehiring in May 2020, Hooters predominantly brought back white employees or those with lighter skin tones. Additionally, these employees reported experiencing racial hostility and observed preferential treatment of lighter skin employees. So, while the entire planet was shutting down, people losing their jobs and businesses collapsing, Hooters still found time to discriminate. Like they weren't even open and they still tried slipping in racism on company time. There was also an eerily similar situation in Metairie, Louisiana. Only this time, none of the black employees were rehired after the pandemic-related layoffs, despite reporting to be far more qualified than those who actually got their jobs back. In the Greensboro case, Hooters agreed to pay $250,000. In the Metairie case, Hooters agreed to pay $650,000. And while that is a lot of money, there is one case far more infamous for being a bit hairier. In 2015, Farron Johnson, a former waitress at the Harbor Place Hooters in Baltimore, Maryland, won a $250,000 judgment after being fired for not meeting the enforced appearance policies. Remember when I said that the Hooters Girl Handbook dictated hairstyle among many other things? Well, in 2013, Johnson added blonde highlights to her hair. And upon arriving to work, her managers informed her that the new hairdo had violated Hooters' image policy. Or as Hooters saw it, black people don't have blonde hair. Hooters, the restaurant where the entire business model is based on a fantasy, but no. A black woman with blonde hair? That's just unrealistic. And shout out Farron Johnson. She stood her ground, refusing to change her hair until she was fired that August. Like, imagine telling someone they're too black to work at Hooters and then making them finish out the entire summer shift. So how did a company this messy not only survive, but dominate? It actually didn't take long. By the late 1980s, less than a decade after opening, Hooters wasn't just a restaurant. It had become a full-blown cultural institution. Wings, beer, and women in orange shorts. An extremely aggressive franchising model meant by 1987, Hooters had 40 locations nationwide and was expanding rapidly. And unlike other casual dining chains, Hooters sold an experience, meaning their only real competition was Chuck E. Cheese. Except one was an overstimulating mess full of screaming children with drunk and highly distracted parents, and the other was Chuck E. Cheese.
Watch the screen, not your feet.
Bill, shut up. I got it.
Number 32.
Oh, no. A pizza's ready.
Tag out, man. Tag out. I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world, wrapped in plastic. It's fantastic. Come on, Barbie, let's go party. Yeah.
As seen in their extremely sexualized commercials, Hooters promised a good time that leaned heavily into sports culture, the waitstaff, and a marketing strategy that blended humor and male-targeted branding. A prime example of this came in 1986 with the Hooters calendar. The company had doubled down on its waitstaff, producing a Hooters calendar featuring its top waitresses. And it turned out to be one of Hooters' most profitable ventures. This is like Red Lobster realizing their best-selling item isn't seafood, but a shrimp-scented body pillow called Daddy's Little Crustacean. Since its debut, the calendar has been published annually, featuring Hooters girls from various locations. And they are sought-after collectibles. In fact, last year for 2024, Hooters released a collector's 40th anniversary special edition calendar. Now, before every woman groans into her screen, why are you laughing? Oh, screw off. You know, women can watch this too. A portion of the proceeds from the calendar sales were historically allocated to breast cancer research. Because nothing says corporate responsibility like profiting off boobs to save boobs. Which is great news for testicular cancer, because I really cannot wait to see how they market that one. Now, nobody quite embodied the wild success of the Hooters calendar like Lynn Austin. As the OG Hooters girl, her connection to the brand didn't just make her a household name in the living room of divorced dads, it launched her into Playboy as the July 1986 Playmate of the Month, and later into a career as a radio personality. So, real quick, to recap Lynn Austin's career path. Step 1, work at restaurant. Step 2, get naked. Step 3, talk into a microphone. And that sounds like a Harvard MBA compared to today, where some teen redneck with a bad dye job threatens to throw hands with elderly Dr. Phil.
Did you say the hoes are laughing?
Yep.
So the audience are a bunch of hoes?
Yep. Catch me outside. How about that?
Huh?
Catch me outside. How about that?
Catch you out.
It's great. Quick way to go. Fuck, at least I'm not that guy, you know?
And now she owns 3 mansions. But Hooters wasn't just built on sex appeal, it was built on sports. The restaurant didn't just cater to game day crowds, it made sports a core part of its identity. Hooters infiltrated sports culture, embedding itself through sponsorships, athlete endorsements, and prime placements in the sports media ecosystem. And a big part of this strategy was those key sponsorships. Famously, Hooters has been a prominent sponsor of NASCAR, a sport for people who think track and field is too slow, but Formula One is too European. This collaboration started in 1992, when Hooters financed driver Alan Kulvitsky, who went on to win the NASCAR Cup Series championship. This partnership cemented Hooters as a legitimate sports brand and introduced the chain to a massive TV audience. And their success didn't end with Kulvitsky. Hooters had Chase Elliott, one of the sport's other signature stars, racing in what can only be described as the Batmobile from Greta Gerwig's The Dark Knight 4, Bruce's midlife crisis. Outside of NASCAR, Hooters also partnered with the Ultimate Fighting Championship, sponsoring fights and hosting official watch parties. Select locations would offer special promotions, reservations, and offers for big fights like UFC 232 and UFC 300. Which makes sense, because not only is this another key audience overlap, but both companies understand the importance of a well-placed distraction. Then there's the NFL. Yes, Hooters girls collaborated with football like other sports with specific game day deals, but more notably was their partnership with former NFL head coach John Gruden. After his initial coaching tenure and being fired by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Gruden established the Fired Football Coaches Association, which sounds like a real organization he founded to stay connected with the sport, but was actually just Gruden squatting at Hooters headquarters like a guy who lost his job, dignity, and his strip club privileges all in the same 24 hours. The FFCA's headquarters were located within the Hooters corporate office in Florida, but their relationship extended beyond office space. He participated in promotional activities that actually did some good within the local community, which is surprising, because based on those emails, I'm shocked they didn't just give Chucky an honorary regional manager title. For instance, together, Gruden and Hooters launched a campaign encouraging high school football programs to share why they deserved a $5,000 donation from the chain.
Local businessman pledges college tuition to third graders.
Hooters threw its owl logo on a lot of sports, but no partnership made more sense. No athlete embodied the brand more perfectly than legendary golfer John Daly. Because while other athletes were just sponsored by Hooters, Daly was Hooters in human form. John Daly is one of the most controversial and beloved golfers in PGA history. He embraced Hooters not only as his longtime sponsor, but his unofficial clubhouse. The company backed him even as he built a reputation for hard partying and gambling issues. And in return, Daly was always seen sporting Hooters branded clothing and even using a custom golf bag featuring the retro Hooters logo, which in normal life would be a giant red flag, but on the golf course, that's brandishing your Purple Heart for a commitment to light beer and bad choices. To this day, you can still find the 56-year-old two-time major champ at a Hooters. During the 2022 PGA Championship in Tulsa, Daly made an effort to find the local Hooters, where he made sure to pose with the waitstaff before, in true John Daly style, taking the party to the casino. But Hooters didn't just stop with John Daly. They doubled down. Because if there's one thing better than sponsoring a professional golfer with a notorious reputation in the physique of a rotting Mr. Potato Head, it's securing a second generation to keep that legacy going. Enter John Daly II. Daly's son and a rising collegiate golfer at the University of Arkansas, who became Hooters' first NIL ambassador. Some families pass down values. Some families pass down businesses. The Dalys pass down both. As part of his deal with Hooters, the college athlete wears Hooters-branded apparel during select golf tournaments, promotes the Hooters brand through his social media platform, and participates in special events with Hooters girls. That's not a sponsorship. That's a freshman orientation vision board. John Daly was easily Hooters' favorite athlete. Remember Gruden's office at Hooters HQ? Yeah, well, rumor has it inside Gruden's office, there was a hidden suite for John Daly featuring a putting strip, a mattress, and what one can imagine was a full bar. Until John arrived. Meanwhile, Gruden got what? A whiteboard? And if John Daly was Hooters in human form, then Barstool Sports was Hooters in media form, their long-lost corporate twin. Both built their brands on the same core demographic, men aged 18 to 35 who consume sports religiously and have very strong opinions about whether NFL players should paint their nails, but no immediate plans to move out of their parents' house. Oh. Wait, that's also my target demo. Anyway, so it's no surprise that when Barstool and Hooters finally linked up, it felt less like a business deal and more like a homecoming. And with Barstool, it starts at the top. Dave Portnoy, known as El Prez or the father of Miss Peaches and Pete the Beagle. He's a media mogul and internet personality known for his unapologetic authenticity, defiance against mainstream media, obsession with pizza, and of course, for founding Barstool Sports, which what started as a small Boston sports newspaper in 2004 has since exploded into a full-blown media empire. Barstool thrives on unfiltered, controversial, and hypermasculine content. Barstool dominates the sports world by producing shows like Pardon My Take and Barstool Sports Advisors, launching its own sports book, and securing partnerships with major brands like DraftKings. So really, it should come as no surprise that John Gruden, the former coach we spent the past few minutes talking about, now works for Barstool Sports.
Hey Houston, we have a problem!
Because of this marketing synergy, Barstool frequently promoted Hooters specials, hosted watch parties at different venues, and even filmed live streaming events from inside Hooters locations. Barstool personalities often discussed their experiences at Hooters, further integrating the brand into their content, while collaborative promotional campaigns featured special menu items and exclusive events tied to major sports seasons. At its core, this partnership felt inevitable. Both brands played to men fiending for controversy, an unapologetic rejection of political correctness, and edging. Oh, I read that wrong. Edgy frat-style humor. It was only a matter of time before the graphics distracted me. Essentially, if Barstool Cafe were to ever exist, it would be Hooters, just with louder customers and somehow fewer health inspections. However, long before influencer partnerships, Hooters had already cemented itself as a staple of post-game rituals and sports fandom. It was cool for athletes to go to Hooters after a big win, and some of them really enjoyed themselves. This is Tiger Woods after winning his first major. This is Tiger Woods at Hooters. Now you tell me, which one of these looks like it was really that life-changing moment? Hooters' golden era impacted the next generation of athletes, who are now the faces of all major sports leagues. Most famously, Phoenix Suns star point guard Devin Booker tweeted out his despair over hearing of Hooters' plans to file for bankruptcy, posting "Please don't go" to his millions of Twitter followers. And that caught the attention of his teammate Kevin Durant, another all-time great, who expressed similar displeasure. And Miami Heat forward Kevin Love got in on the action by suggesting Durant and Booker step in and buy Hooters, preserving the franchise for the next generation of future Hoopers. And it's not just basketball players. Former professional golfer Paige Spiranac lamented the news of foreclosure, and NFL legends Shannon Sharpe and Chad Ochocinco Johnson reflected on their own late nights at Hooters. And let's just say Shannon should drop to his knees and thank the technological gods that Instagram Live did not exist back then. Because if it was, we wouldn't be hearing these stories. We'd be watching them. Most likely in deposition footage.
Call the dogs off. Send the National Guard, please. They need emergency help. Please help these folks. They're coming. Help is on the way.
With sports partnerships, celebrity endorsements, and a devoted fan base, business was booming. By the early 1990s, the brand wasn't just thriving in the US, it was expanding internationally, opening locations in Canada, Mexico, and Asia. Hooters had successfully positioned itself as the go-to spot for wings, beer, and a very specific interpretation of customer service. So how did it happen? How did a restaurant that once felt untouchable end up on the brink of collapse? Well, the answer isn't just about Hooters. Now, in 2025, Hooters is reportedly preparing to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, working with creditors to restructure its debt as traditional sit-down restaurants struggle to keep pace with the changing consumer habits. Just look at TGI Fridays, a place where if you actually spend your Friday nights there, then somewhere you took a very wrong turn in life. Because that's like spending New Year's Eve at an airport bar. Sure, it's open and the drinks are strong, but it really shouldn't be the plan. In September 2024, TGI Fridays lost control of its assets to a consulting firm, FTI Consulting. And this led the owners of TGI Fridays UK abandoning its acquisition plans, ultimately closing 35 locations and costing 1,012 jobs. Not much later, less than half a year, TGI Fridays filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in the US. And there's also been Boston Market, Red Robin, and Denny's, which announced plans to close at least 150 locations by the end of 2025, bringing the total of 180 Denny's closed since last year. And at a time when boobs have never been bigger, plastics technology has never been more advanced, and gravity itself is actively losing the war, Hooters still fell victim to these same struggles. In 2024, Hooters closed the door to approximately 40 underperforming locations. Execs attributed the decision to rising operational costs, lower in-store traffic, and changing consumer habits. And whatever the reason, people didn't want to hear it. In Conway City, hundreds attended a candlelight vigil at the last Hooters in West Virginia's demolition. And even the local newscasters couldn't help but get a little emotional.
Organizers said that Hooters even sent about the event, sent a box of calendars as well. God bless you.
I guess next week we'll see Anderson Cooper lead a prayer over a closing Equinox juice bar. Where was this following that it allowed Hooters to get to the point of bankruptcy? As it turns out, Hooters saw the warning signs long ago and tried just about everything to keep the momentum going. The 2000s were filled with failed expansion efforts, and unfortunately for Hooters, not all growth is good growth. And let's start with the most logical expansion after selling deep-fried appetizers: aviation. In 2003, Hooters expanded its offering of type of wings by launching Hooters Airlines. This was a real airline based out of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. The airline took off with a fleet of 3 Boeing 737s and 2 Boeing 747s. Offering flights to cities like Las Vegas, Atlanta, and Newark, because, of course, Atlantic City had to get on the list. Each flight featured 2 Hooters girls dressed in the brand's signature orange shorts. But they didn't serve food or drinks, because apparently, Hooters realized the only thing standing between them and literally selling tickets to stare at women was a plate of buffalo wings. While flights were often cheaper than competitors, the airline struggled to attract frequent business travelers and was viewed more as a novelty than a serious airline. And after only 3 years, Hooters Airlines was shut down in 2006, with executives citing rising fuel costs and poor financial performance. But here's the thing. At no point did a Hooters flight lose an emergency door or have an engine casually combust mid-air. It actually finished with a better safety record than half of the airlines still flying today. There was also Hooters Energy Drinks, which launched in the mid-2000s, branded with Hooters Girls on signature orange cans. They were primarily sold at Hooters locations and some select retailers, and it came in at least 2 flavors, orange and sugar-free berry. Because the restaurant that gave every man named Milton pre-diabetes is suddenly very worried about nutrition. What's next, a Checkers protein shake? In 2008, Power Trip Beverages acquired the rights to manufacture and distribute the drink, yet despite its distinct branding, Hooters Energy Drink struggled against industry giants like Red Bull and Monster. And over time, it quietly faded away, completely disappearing overnight like Gautier, or Gautier, or Gautier. I don't know, maybe if he'd stuck around we'd all know how to pronounce his name. But it became another failed expansion in the Hooters portfolio. And this brings us to the Hoots experiment. In 2017, Hooters launched Hoots, a fast casual spin-off designed to appeal to a younger, more socially conscious consumer. Unlike traditional Hooters, Hoots had a smaller menu, a counter service model like fast food competitors, and both male and female servers dressed in modest uniforms. It had the same kind of rebranding energy that Joy Taylor had after the Fox Sports scandal. Suddenly, no skin, no eye contact, and a level of professionalism that made everyone quietly question, what the hell is going on here? This was clearly an attempt for Hooters to begin distancing itself from the breastaurant identity that had brought it so far. And the concept never really took off. Only a handful of locations ever actually opened. So, in a last-ditch effort to broaden its customer base, Hooters controversially marketed itself as a family restaurant. The same way that Juul called itself the solution to smoking. And to be fair, one of them did single-handedly revolutionize youth consumerism and turn every middle school bathroom into a functioning speakeasy. The company introduced a kids menu, which included items like grilled cheese, chicken tenders, and cheeseburgers. Some locations even hosted kids' birthday parties.
It's a birthday party for an adorable 5-year-old boy named Xander. But Mom didn't take him to Chuck E. Cheese. They're celebrating at Hooters.
Attention, Hooters! This is my best friend Xander. He's turning 5 years old.
In their iconic orange short shorts and low-cut shirts, the waitresses give the birthday boy a special serenade.
And we're here to sing for you.
Who brings a child to Hooters? Seems more like Dad's birthday than the kids. So much for protect the children. Go just a few angry reactions.
Because nothing says early childhood development like a 5-year-old trying to figure out why daddy is tipping so aggressively. However, it was met with backlash and public ridicule, as Hooters critics questioned why a breastaurant was attempting to cater to children. But if trying to turn Hooters into a family restaurant felt like a stretch, their next move was even more ambitious, forcing the brand across the globe. Because as much as Hooters was beginning to struggle fitting into American culture by the 2010s, it turns out it had an even harder time fitting in anywhere. Hooters opened multiple locations in Seoul, but struggled due to a more conservative dining culture and backlash from women's rights groups. Hooters also attempted to establish locations in Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, but poor economic conditions and low interest from local consumers led to closures. A planned expansion into Switzerland failed before opening due to licensing and brand issues, and the chain tried to gain traction in London but failed. Because shockingly, it turns out you can't open a business that relies on a steady supply of Hooters girls in a country that barely supplies sunlight. And we'll go ahead and just pretend that pub culture and dental care had nothing to do with it.
Oh, behave. Yeah. Yeah, baby. Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, Hooters' business model simply didn't translate to 2025. What once felt like a foolproof formula of beers, wings, and women in tiny outfits became harder to sell as cultural attitudes evolved. As workplace standards changed and consumer preferences shifted, the breastaurant concept started to feel less like a novelty and more like a relic. And this was in large part due to the evolving perception of female objectification. There's been a growing recognition of the negative impacts associated with the sexualization and objectification of women in media and advertising. Research indicates that such portrayals can lead to harmful societal effects, including the normalization of sexual violence and harassment. Plus, there are the mental health implications. Studies have shown that environments promoting the objectification of women, such as breastaurants, can adversely affect female employees' mental health, leading to issues like depression and body dissatisfaction. And honestly, based off everything we've heard about Hooters ownership, I'm just shocked they didn't try to roll out a new initiative. Eyes Up Here Wednesday, where for one night a week, customers are politely asked to maintain eye contact and just feign interest into their Waitresses Community College creative writing course before ordering the first round of beers. There's also been the impact of social movements on these changing mindsets. The hashtag #MeToo movement advocated against sexual harassment and promoted gender equality, heightening scrutiny of businesses that objectify women and leading to calls for more respectful and equitable treatments across industries. Other feminist advocacy groups have additionally helped continue the discourse that challenges the normalization of sexual objectification in various sectors, including the hospitality industry, which urged a reevaluation of practices that perpetuate gender biases. Basically, we as a society have evolved past the need for Hooters. Now we just get the exact same thing from every micro-influencer on Instagram with affiliated links in their bio. Experts are also crediting broader cultural shifts. For instance, millennial and Gen Z attitudes. Apparently, younger generations are increasingly seeking authentic and inclusive experiences, exhibiting a noticeable decline in interest towards establishments that emphasize outdated gender stereotypes and sexual branding, which must explain why Vegas just had its most profitable year. Instagram is one long audition tape for Love Island, and the only thing separating music videos from strip clubs is a liquor license. Masculinity itself is also being redefined. It's not just in the world of Ted Lasso. Traditional norms that once embraced the breastaurant concept have given way to broader, more inclusive understandings of gender and sexuality. Ones that don't rely on the outdated ideas of what it means to be manly. There's also a growing demand for media and advertising to portray women in empowering and multifaceted roles, moving beyond the reductive damsel in distress depictions. All of these changing attitudes towards gender dynamics have led to more public criticism of businesses built on these old assumptions. Hooters, direct competitors in the breastaurant industry, well, they're feeling it too. The Tilted Kilt, the most similar concept to Hooters, has struggled to maintain profitability and has since closed multiple locations. Twin Peaks, a slightly more modernized competitor, had to lean into upscale, expensive bar food just to stay afloat. And there's also bikini barista coffee shops, a Pacific Northwest string of cafes that have faced legal challenges over their business model's treatment of staff. Which, if Hooters is any indication, means that Bikini Barista is about to go on a 3-decade-long run of dominating American sports culture.
If you ain't first, you're last. You know what I'm talking about? That phrase is trademark, not to be used outside the tradition of Ricky Bobby Inc.
Then there's the economic reality. At some point, the question has to be asked, was Hooters food ever actually good? While Hooters became famous for its Hooters girls, the quality of the food was never the primary draw. Customer reviews frequently cited inconsistent wing quality, slow service, and overpriced menu items. These issues became harder to ignore when competition from better, faster, and cheaper alternatives grew. In an era where fast casual chains like Buffalo Wild Wings, Wingstop, and independent wing joints have exploded, Hooters food failed to stand out. And there's no viral trend to excuse your shitty food like Chili's. And we haven't even talked about the people who just want to watch games from the comfort of their own home and simply order in. The COVID-19 pandemic accelerated consumer preferences for delivery and takeout, with sit-down casual dining still feeling the effects half a decade later. Hooters struggled with delivery because, it turns out, if you take the cleavage out of the equation, you're just paying $18 for disappointment in a styrofoam box. And while you don't get the Hooters girl with the delivery, you have a way better shot at living the delivery guy fantasy than ever convincing a Hooters waitress to call you after her shift. Hell, at least one of them actually went to your place. Beyond the financial struggles, there was the internal dysfunction. As we mentioned earlier, between racial discrimination lawsuits, sexual harassment cases, and their outdated hiring practices, Hooters was constantly hemorrhaging money on legal fees the way SeaWorld budgeted for Shamu-related damages every quarter. So after all this, the lawsuits, the bad expansion attempts, the slow realization that maybe the food should have been the priority, what happens now? Is there actually a future for Hooters? Can it bounce back, or is this just one really long, really bizarre obituary for a restaurant chain that somehow lasted 40 years? While bankruptcy does end games of Monopoly, if you're not already trapped in a 6-hour standoff where your cousin refuses to mortgage Boardwalk out of pure spite, it's not the end for corporations in the real world. Look at both Red Lobster and Chuck E. Cheese. Okay, maybe don't actually look, but both chains still have operating locations today, even after declaring bankruptcy. So are there rebranding options for Hooters? Some experts speculate that Hooters could survive in a limited capacity by focusing on its sports bar aspect, while modernizing its hiring practices. AKA, let your employees do OnlyFans on their own time. But in a real sense, does a company with close ties to Hooters step in to save the company under their own label? Could we actually see Barstool Cafe, with Gruden pouring beers, Prez serving pizza, and Big Cat flipping burgers? I mean, could anyone even imagine what that would look like?
I'm gonna ask him once. You gonna tell him how to season it now too?
No, I'm not. I just wanted everyone to be safe.
He's an excuse machine, which we'll find during the course of this day.
Gotcha. Okay, just pick up that burger, throw it on that plate. Put it on that plate. Not with the same hand. Now what are you going to do? You use 2 hands on the burger. You could have used 1. Why didn't you use the utensil? Now throw the glove away. You got raw meat all over the glove. You got to start all over again. You can't even move a burger from one plate to another without screwing it up.
Could there be a straight-up buyout? It wouldn't be surprising to see another hospitality giant absorb the Hooters brand. Or less likely, just like Kevin Love predicted, will any athletes, maybe Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, dip their toes into a high-profile investment that could theoretically keep select locations open? While none of these look likely right now, and it's definitely too soon to definitively state what the future of Hooters may hold, maybe that's the wrong question. Because even if Hooters does somehow survive, it won't change the fact that this entire story is objectively ridiculous. So how should we remember Hooters? Was it the dinosaur of sports bars? Like the long flow of luscious mullets, the not-so-subtle homosexual undertones of Top Gun Academy, and reading the newspaper, is Hooters a true remnant of 80s, 90s American masculinity? A time where sports bars were filled with Sig Smoke, cheap beer, and waitresses who doubled it as marketing tools, Hooters paved the way for competitors like Buffalo Wild Wings to modernize into family-friendly, data-driven sports bars. Or is it the restaurant that was never about the food? Because let's be honest, nobody was going to Hooters for the Michelin star cuisine. The food was just an excuse to be there, and more often than not, was a side character in the Hooters experience. And if you still don't believe me, well, Let's roll the tape.
Tell me, Dana, how is your chicken breast?
Oh, it's great. It's served with our world-famous wing sauce.
Sounds yummy. I will have a chicken breast. Hold the chicken. Oh.
Is that what you really want?
No, I'm gonna have the gourmet hot dog.
Customers often complained about the wings, yet because of the Hooters girls, sports tie-ins, and brand recognition, the food never really mattered. Until it did. Plus, there was all the failed and bizarre expansions. Hooters Airlines lost millions and shut down in 3 years. Hooters Energy Drink completely disappeared within a few years of being released. And hell, we didn't even talk about the Hooters Casino Hotel. Because apparently Hooters execs looked around the Vegas Strip and said, what this city really needs is an even less dignifying way for you to lose your rent money. This was a Las Vegas hotel and casino designed to bring the Hooters experience to the gambling world. However, it really ended up being too trashy. It lacked the prestige of the Bellagio, the nostalgia of the Flamingo, and the wild energy of Caesar's Palace. The Hooters Casino struggled to find a footing and was sold, rebranded as the OYO Hotel and Casino in 2019. Or really, should we remember Hooters as the meme before memes existed? Before Barstool Sports and frat boy internet culture, Hooters was the original meme. From John Gruden's Office to John Daly's Hooters Lifestyle and the calendars. Hooters was both self-aware and oblivious at the same time. Even as sales declined, the Hooters aesthetic never truly went away. It just migrated to your favorite celebrity's unironic Halloween costume. Whatever it is. Despite the owl remaining a symbol of a bygone era, Hooters' cultural footprint will always be a joke. And that was the point, right? Their approach worked for decades because Hooters leaned into its own ridiculousness, refusing to change even as the world around it evolved. But that's the thing about jokes. Sometimes they land. And sometimes you do the same joke so many times that everyone stops laughing. Except you. Because you're desperately trying to pretend that the shtick's still funny. Even if the chain vanishes completely, the legend of Hooters will live on. It wasn't just a restaurant, it was a cultural relic of a different era. It wasn't just about wings, it was about being proudly, unapologetically absurd. And in the end, Hooters went out exactly as it came in. Like a punchline. Thanks for watching that episode on the rise and fall of Hooters. If you want to see more, catch us on YouTube at Uncoachable Show, on Instagram at Uncoachable Show, and on TikTok at Uncoachable. We already got more videos up on the state of NIL 4 years in, and the current state of the Dallas Mavericks. What was that Luka trade all about?